Yahusaph and Aseneth. From the Old Testament, Pseudo-Apocrypha, Apocalyptic Literature and Testaments, Volume 2. Chapter 1. And it happened in the first year of the 7 years of plenty, in the second month, on the 5th of the month, Pharaoh sent Yahusaph out to drive around the whole land of Mitzrayim. And Yahusaph came in the 4th month of the first year, on the 18th of the month, into the territory of Heliopolis, city of the sun, and was gathering the grain of that region like the sand of the sea. And there was a man in that city, a satrap of Pharaoh, and this man was a chief of all the satraps, and the noblemen of Pharaoh. And this man was exceedingly rich and prudent and gentle, and he was a counselor of Pharaoh, because he had understanding beyond all the noblemen of Pharaoh. And the name of that man was Pinefres, priest of Heliopolis. And he had a daughter, a virgin of 18 years. She was very tall and handsome and beautiful to look at beyond all virgins on the earth. And this girl had nothing similar to the virgins of the Mitzrayim, but she was in every respect similar to the daughters of the Hebrews. And she was tall as Sarah, and handsome as Rebekah, and beautiful as Rachel. And the name of that virgin was Aseneth. And the fame of her beauty spread all over the land, and to the ends of the inhabited world. And all the sons of the noblemen, and the sons of the satraps, and the sons of all kings, all of them young and powerful, asked for her hand in marriage. And there was much wrangling among them over Aseneth, and they made attempts to fight against each other because of her. And Pharaoh's firstborn son heard about her, and he kept entreating his father to give her to him for his wife. And his firstborn son said to Pharaoh, Father, give me Aseneth, the daughter of Pinefres, the priest of Heliopolis, for my wife. And Pharaoh his father said to him, Why do you seek a wife that is beneath you? And you are king of the whole land of Mitzrayim. Behold, is not the daughter of the king of Moab, Jochim, betrothed to you? And she is a queen, and exceedingly beautiful. Take this one for your wife. Chapter 2. And Aseneth was despising and scorning every man, and she was boastful and arrogant with everyone. And no man had ever seen her, because Pinefres had a tower adjoining his house, very big and high, and on top of this tower was an upper floor including 10 chambers. And the first chamber was big and splendid, paved with purple stones, and its walls were faced with colored and precious stones, and the ceiling of that chamber was of gold. And within that chamber, gods of the Egyptians, who were without number, were fixed to the walls, even gods of gold and silver. And Aseneth worshipped them all, and feared, reverenced them, and performed sacrifices to them every day. And the second chamber contained Aseneth's ornaments and chest, and there was much gold in it, the chamber, and silver and clothes, interwoven with gold and chosen and costly stones and distinguished cloths, and all the ornaments of her virginity. And the third chamber was Aseneth's storeroom, and in it were all the good things of the earth. And 7 virgins occupied the remaining 7 chambers, each having 1 chamber, and these were waiting on Aseneth. And they were all of the same age, born in one night with Aseneth. And she loved them very much, and they were very beautiful, like the stars of Shamaim, and no man ever conversed with them, not even a male child. And there were 3 windows to Aseneth's big chamber, where her virginity was being fostered. And the one window, the first, was exceedingly big, looking east toward the court. And the second one was looking north toward the street, where people passed by. And there was a golden bed standing in the chamber, a bed that looked toward the window looking east. And the bed was laid with gold woven purple stuff, interwoven with violet, purple, and white. And in this bed Aseneth slept alone, and a man or another woman never sat on it, only Aseneth alone. And there was a large court surrounding the house, and a wall was around the court, very high, built from big square stones. And the court had 4 iron-plated gates, and 18 powerful armed young men guarded each of these. And handsome trees of all sorts, and all bearing fruit, were planted within the court along the wall. And their fruit was ripe, for it was the time of harvest. And there was in the court on the right hand a spring of abundant living water, and below the spring was a big cistern, receiving the water of that spring. From there a river ran right through the court, and watered all the trees of that court. Chapter 3. And it happened in the first year of the 7 years of plenty, in the 4th month, on the 18th of the month, Yahusaph came into the territory of Heliopolis, and was gathering the surplus grain of that region. And when he had come close to that city, Yahusaph sent 12 men ahead of him to Pinefres the priest, saying, I will lodge with you, because it is the hour of noon, and the time of lunch, and the heat of the sun is great, and I desire that I may refresh myself under the shadow of your house. And Pinefres heard this, and rejoiced exceedingly with great joy, and said, Baruch is YAHUAH, the Aluah of Yahusaph, because my master Yahusaph thought me worthy to come to us. And Pinefres called the steward of his house, and said to him, Hurry, and make my house ready, and prepare a great dinner, because Yahusaph, the powerful one of Aluah, is coming to us today. And Aseneth heard that her father and mother had come from the field, which was their inheritance, and rejoiced and said, I will go and see my father and my mother, because they have come from the field, which is our inheritance, for it was the time of harvest. And Aseneth hurried into the chamber, where her robes lay, and dressed in a white linen robe, interwoven with violet and gold, and girded herself with a golden girdle, and put bracelets on her hands and feet, and put golden buskins about her feet, and around her neck. She put valuable ornaments and costly stones which hung around from all sides. And the names of the gods of the Egyptians were engraved everywhere on the bracelets and the stones, and the faces of all the idols were carved on them. And she put a tiara on her head, and fastened a diadem around her temples, and covered her head with a veil. Chapter 4. And she hurried and went down the stairs from the upper floor, and came to her father and mother, and greeted them and kissed them. And Pinefres and his wife rejoiced over her daughter Aseneth with great joy, because they saw her adorned like a bride of Aluah. And they brought out all the good things which they had brought from the field, which was their inheritance, and gave them to their daughter. And Aseneth rejoiced over all the good things, the fruit, and the grapes, and the dates, and the doves, and the pomegranates, and the figs, because they were all handsome and good to taste. And Pinefres said to his daughter Aseneth, My child, and she said, Behold, here I am, my master. And he said to her, Sit down between us, and I will tell you what I have to say. And Aseneth sat between her father and mother, and Pinefres, her father, with his right hand grasped the right hand of his daughter, and kissed it, and said to her, My child Aseneth. And she said, Behold, here I am, master. Let my master and my father speak up. And Pinefres, her father, said to her, Yahusaph, the powerful one of Aluah, is coming to us today, and he is the chief of the whole land of Mitzrayim. And the king, Pharaoh, appointed him king ruler of the whole land, and he is giving grain to the whole land, and saving it from the oncoming famine. And Yahusaph is a man who worships Aluah and self-controlled, and a virgin like you today. And Yahusaph is also a man powerful in wisdom and experience. And the Ruach of YAHUAH is upon him, and the grace of YAHUAH is with him. Come, my child, and I will hand you over to him for his wife, and you will be a bride to him, and he will be your bridegroom forever and ever." And when Aseneth heard these words from her father, plenty of red sweat poured over her face, and she became furious with great anger, and looked askance at her father with her eyes, and said, "Why does my master and my father speak words such as these, to hand me over like a captive to a man who was an alien and a fugitive, and was sold as a slave? Is he not the shepherd's son from the land of Canaan? And he himself was caught in the act of sleeping with his mistress, and his master threw him into the prison of darkness? And Pharaoh brought him out of prison because he interpreted his dream, just like the older women of the Egyptians interpret dreams? No, but I will be married to the king's firstborn son, because he is king of the whole land of Mitzrayim." Hearing this, Pinefres was ashamed to speak further to his daughter Aseneth about Yahusaph, because she answered him daringly and with boastfulness and anger. Chapter 5. And a young man of Pinefres' servants rushed in and said, "Behold, Yahusaph is standing before the door of our courts." And Aseneth fled from her father's and mother's presence when she heard them speak these words about Yahusaph, and went up into the upper floor, and entered her chamber, and stood by the large window, the one looking east, in order to see Yahusaph entering her father's house. And Pinefres and his wife and his whole family went out to meet Yahusaph, and the gate of the court looking east were open, and Yahusaph entered, standing on Pharaoh's second chariot, and 4 horses white as snow, and with golden bridles, were harnessed to it, and the entire chariot was manufactured from pure gold. And Yahusaph was dressed in an exquisite white tunic, and the robe which he had thrown around him with purple, made of linen interwoven with gold, and a golden crown was on his head. And around the crown were 12 chosen stones, and on the top of the 12 stones were 12 golden rays, and a royal staff was in his left hand, and in his right hand he held outstretched an olive branch, and there was plenty of fruit on it, and in the fruits was a great wealth of oil. And Yahusaph entered the court, and the gates of the court were closed, and every man and woman, if strange, remained outside the court, because the guards of the gates drew tight and closed the doors, and all the strangers were closed out. And Pinefres and his wife and his whole family, except their daughter Aseneth, went and prostrated themselves face down to the ground before Yahusaph. And Yahusaph descended from his chariot and greeted them with his right hand. Chapter 6. And Aseneth saw Yahusaph on his chariot, and was strongly cut to the heart, and her soul was crushed, and her knees were paralyzed, and her entire body trembled, and she was filled with great fear. And she sighed and said in her heart, "What shall I do now, wretched that I am? Did I not speak, saying that Yahusaph is coming, that shepherd's son from the land of Canaan? And now, behold, the son from Shalam has come to us on its chariot, and entered our house today, and shines in it like a light upon the arets. But I, foolish and daring, have despised him, and spoke wicked words about him, and did not know that Yahusaph is a son of Aluah. For whom among men on earth will generate such beauty? And what womb of a woman will give birth to such light? What a wretched and foolish girl I am, because I have spoken wicked words about him to my father. And now where shall I go and hide from his face, in order that Yahusaph, the son of Aluah, does not see me, because I have spoken wicked things about him? And where shall I flee and hide, because every hiding place he sees, and nothing hidden escapes him, because of the great light that is inside him? And now be gracious on me, YAHUAH Aluah of Yahusaph, because I have spoken wicked words against him in ignorance. And now let my father give me to Yahusaph for a maidservant and slave, and I will serve him forever and ever." Chapter 7. And Yahusaph entered the house of Pinefris, and sat upon the throne, and they washed his feet, and set a table before him by itself, because Yahusaph never ate with the Mitzrayim, for this was an abomination to him. And looking up with his eyes, Yahusaph saw Aseneth leaning through the window. And Yahusaph said to Pinefris and his whole family, "Who is this woman who is standing in the upper floor by the window? Let her leave this house," because Yahusaph was afraid, saying, "This one must not molest me too." For all the wives and the daughters of the noblemen and the satraps of the whole land of Mitzrayim used to molest him, wanting to sleep with him. And all the wives and the daughters of the Mitzrayim, when they saw Yahusaph, suffered badly because of his beauty. But Yahusaph despised them, and the messengers whom the woman sent to him with gold and silver and valuable presents, Yahusaph sent back with threats and insults, because Yahusaph said, "I will not sin before YAHUAH, Aluah of my father Yashar'Al, nor in the face of my father Yaakov." And the face of his father Yaakov Yahusaph always had before his eyes, and he remembered his father's commandments. For Yaakov would say to his son Yahusaph and all his sons, "My children, guard strongly against associating with a strange woman, for association with her is destruction and corruption." Therefore Yahusaph said, "Let this woman leave this house." And Pinefris said to him, "Master, this one whom you have seen standing in the upper floor is not a strange woman, but she is our daughter, a virgin hating every man, and there is not any other man who has ever seen her except you alone today. And if you will, she will come and address you, because our daughter is like a sister to you." And Yahusaph rejoiced exceedingly with great joy, because Pinefris had said, "She is a virgin hating every man." And Yahusaph said by himself, "If she is a virgin hating every man, this girl will certainly not molest me." And Yahusaph said to Pinefris and his whole family, "If she is your daughter and a virgin, let her come, because she is a sister to me, and I love her from today as my sister." Chapter 8. And Aseneth's mother went up to the upper floor, and brought her and stood her before Yahusaph. And Pinefris said to his daughter Aseneth, "Greet your brother, because he too is a virgin like you today, and hates every strange woman as you too every strange man." And Aseneth said to Yahusaph, "Be of good cheer, my master, Baruch by the Most High YAHUAH." And Yahusaph said to Aseneth, "May YAHUAH, Aluah, who gives life to all things, Baruch you." And Pinefris said to his daughter Aseneth, "Go up and kiss your brother." And as Aseneth went up to kiss Yahusaph, Yahusaph stretched out his right hand and put it on her chest between her two breasts, and her breasts were already standing upright like handsome apples. And Yahusaph said, "It is not fitting for a man who worships Aluah, who will Baruch with his mouth the living Aluah, and eat Baruch bread of life, and drink a Baruch cup of immortality, and anoint himself with Baruch ointment of incorruptibility, to kiss a strange woman, who will Baruch with her mouth dead and dumb idols, and eat from their table bread of strangulation, and drink from their libation a cup of insidiousness, and anoint herself with ointment of destruction. But a man who worships YAHUAH will kiss his mother, and the sister who is born of his mother, and the sister who is born of his clan and family, and the wife who shares his bed, all of whom Baruch with their mouths the living Aluah. Likewise, for a woman who worships Aluah, it is not fitting to kiss a strange man, because this is an abomination before YAHUAH, Aluah." And when Aseneth heard these words of Yahusaph, she was cut to the heart strongly, and was distressed exceedingly, and sighed. And she kept gazing at Yahusaph with her eyes open, and her eyes were filled with tears. And Yahusaph saw her, and had mercy on her exceedingly, and was himself cut to the heart, because Yahusaph was meek and merciful and fearing Aluah. And he lifted up his right hand and put it upon her head and said, Yahuwah Aluah of my father Yashar'Al, the Most High, the powerful one of Yaakov, who gave life to all things, and called them from the darkness to the light, and from the error to the truth, and from the death to the life. You, Yahuwah, Baruch this virgin, and renew her by your Ruach, and form her anew by your hidden hand, and make her alive again by your life, and let her eat your bread of life, and drink your cup of barakah, and number her among your people, that you have chosen before all things come into being, and let her enter your rest, which you have prepared for your chosen ones, and live in your eternal life forever and ever. Chapter 9. And Aseneth rejoiced exceedingly with great joy over Yahusaph's barakah, and hurried and went into the upper floor by herself, and fell on her bed exhausted, because in her there was joy and distress, and much fear and trembling, and continuous sweating as she heard all these words of Yahusaph, which he had spoken to her in the name of the Most High Yahuwah. And she wept with great and bitter weeping, and repented of her infatuation with the gods whom she used to worship, and spurned all the idols, and waited for the evening to come. And Yahusaph ate and drank, and told his servants, Harness the horses to the chariots, for he said, I will go away and drive around the whole land. And Pentecost said to Yahusaph, Let my master lodge here today, and tomorrow you will go out on your way. And Yahusaph said, No, but I will go out today, because this is the day on which Yahuwah began to make all his creatures. And on the 8th day, when this day returns, I too will return to you and lodge here. Chapter 10. And Yahusaph went away on his way, and Pentecost and his whole family went away to their estate. And Aseneth was left alone with the 7 virgins, and she continued to be weighed down and weep until the sunset. And she ate no bread and drank no water. And the night fell, and all the people in the house slept, and she alone was awake, and continued to brood and to weep. And she often struck her breast with her hand, and kept being filled with great fear, and trembled with heavy trembling. And Aseneth rose from her bed, and quietly went down the stairs from the upper floor, and went to the gateway. And the woman, gatekeeper, was asleep with her children. And Aseneth hurried and took down from the window the skin which hung there for a curtain, and filled it with ashes from the fireplace, and carried it up into the upper floor, and put it on the floor. And she closed the door firmly, and slipped the iron bolt across, and sighed with great sighing and bitter weeping. And the virgin who was her foster sister, whom Aseneth loved beyond all the virgins, heard her sighing, and hurried and woke up the other 6 virgins. And they went to Aseneth's door, and found the door closed. And they heard Aseneth sighing and weeping, and said to her, What have you, mistress? And why do you feel so sad? And what is it that is bothering you? Open the door to us, and we will see what you have. And Aseneth did not open the door, but said to them from within, My head is stricken with heavy pain, and I am resting in the bed, and I do not have the strength to rise and open the door to you, because I have grown weak in all my limbs. But go each of you in your chamber, and rest, and let me be quiet. So the virgins went away, each into her chamber. And Aseneth rose and opened the door quietly, and went into her second chamber, and where the chests containing her ornaments were, and opened her coffer, and took out a black and somber tunic. And this was her tunic of mourning. And when her younger brother died, in this Aseneth had dressed and mourned for her brother. And she took her black tunic, and carried it into her chamber, and closed the door again firmly, and slipped the bolt across. And Aseneth hurried and put off her linen and golden woven royal robe, and dressed in the black tunic of mourning, and loosened her golden girdle, and girded a rope around her, and put off the tiara from her head, and the diadem and the bracelets from her hands and feet, and put everything on the floor. And she took her chosen robe, and the golden girdle, and the headgear and the diadem, and threw everything through the window, looking north to the poor. And Aseneth hurried, and took all her gods that were in her chamber, the ones of gold and silver, who were without number, and ground them to pieces, and threw all the idols of the Mitzrayim through the window, looking north from her upper floor to beggars and needy persons. And Asenath took her royal dinner, and the fatlings, and the fish, and the flesh of the heifer, and all the sacrifices of her goods, and the vessels of their wine of libation, and threw everything through the window looking north, and gave everything to the strange dogs. For Asenath said to herself, By no means must my dogs eat from my dinner, and from the sacrifice of the idols, but let the strange dogs eat those. And after that Asenath took the skin full of ashes and poured it on the floor. And she took a piece of sackcloth and girded around her waist, and she loosened the clasp of the hair of her head, and sprinkled ashes upon her head. And she scattered the ashes on the floor, and struck her breast often with both hands, and wept bitterly, and fell upon the ashes, and wept with great and bitter weeping, all night with sighing and screaming until daybreak. And Asenath rose at daybreak and looked, and behold, there was much mud from her tears, and from the ashes. And Asenath fell again upon her face on the ashes till evening, and until the setting of the sun. And this way Aseneth did for 7 days. And she ate no bread and drank no water in those 7 days of her humiliation. And on the 8th day, behold, it was dawn, and the birds were already singing, and the dogs barking at people who were passing through. And Asenath lifted her head just a little from the floor, and the ashes on which she was lying, because she was exceedingly tired and could not control her limbs, because of the want of food for the 7 days. And she rose on her knees, and put on her hand on the floor, and lifted herself up a little from the floor. And she was still bowing her head, and the hairs of her head were stretched out in strands from the load of ashes. And Asenath clasped her hands, finger against finger. And she shook her head to and fro, and struck her breast continuously with her hands, and laid her head into her lap. And her face was flooded with tears, and she sighed with great sighing, and pulled her hairs from her head, and sprinkled ashes on her head. And Asenath was tired and become discouraged, and her strength had gone. And she turned upward to the wall, and sat below the window, looking east. And she laid her head into her lap, clasping her fingers round her right knee, and her mouth was closed. And she had not opened it in the 7 days and in the 7 nights of her humiliation. And she said in her heart, without opening her mouth, What shall I do, miserable that I am? Where shall I go? With whom shall I take refuge? Or what shall I speak? I, the virgin, and an orphan, and desolate, and abandoned, and hated. All people have come to hate me, and on top of those my father and my mother, because I too have come to hate their gods, and have destroyed them, and caused them to be trampled under foot by men. And therefore my father and my mother and my whole family have come to hate me, and said, Asenath is not our daughter, because she destroyed our gods. And all people hate me, because I too have come to hate every man, and all who have asked for my hand in marriage. And now, in the humiliation of mine, all have come to hate me, and gloat over this affliction of mine. And YAHUAH, the Aluah of the powerful, Yahusaph, the Most High, hates all those who worship idols, because he is a jealous and terrible, fearful Aluah toward all those who worship strange gods. Therefore he has come to hate me too, because I worship dead and dumb idols, and baruch them, and ate from their sacrifices, and my mouth is defiled from their table, and I do not have the boldness to call on Yahuwah Aluah of Shamayim, the Most High, the Mighty One of the powerful Yahusaph, because my mouth is defiled from sacrifices of the idols. But I have heard many saying that the Aluah of the Abrim is a true Aluah, and a living Aluah, and a merciful Aluah, and compassionate and long-suffering, and full of pity and gentle, and does not count the sin of a humble person, nor expose the lawless deeds of an afflicted person at the time of his affliction. Chapter 11. Therefore I will take courage too, and turn to him, and take refuge with him, and confess all my sins to him, and pour out my supplication before him. Who knows? Maybe he will see my humiliation and have mercy on me. Perhaps he will see the desolation of mine and have compassion on me, or see my orphanage and protect me, because he is the father of orphans, and a protector of the persecuted, and of the afflicted, a helper. I will take courage and cry to him. And Aseneth rose from the wall where she was sitting, and turned to the window looking east, and straightened up on her knees, and spread her hands out toward Shamayim. And she was afraid to open her mouth and to name the name of Aluah. And she turned again away to the wall, and sat and struck her head and her breast within her hand often, and said in her heart without opening her mouth, What a wretched woman I am, and an orphan and desolate. My mouth is defiled from the sacrifices of the idols, and from the baraka of the gods of the Mitzrayim. And now in these tears of mine, and the ashes strewn around, and the filth of my humiliation, how shall I open my mouth to the Most High, and how name his awesome Kudash name, and be sure that Yahuwah will not be angry with me, because in the midst of my lawless deeds I have called on his Kudash name. What shall I now do, wretched that I am? I will rather take courage and open my mouth to him and invoke his name. And if in fury Yahuwah strikes me, he himself will again heal me. And if he chastises me with his whips, he himself will look again on me in his mercy. And if he is furious at me and my sins, he will again be reconciled with me and forgive me every sin. So I will take courage to open my mouth to him. And Aseneth rose again from the wall where she sat, and straightened up on her knees, and spread her hand eastward, and looked with her eyes up toward Shamayim, and opened her mouth to Yahuwah, and said, Chapter 12. Aluah Yahuwah of the ages, who created all things and gave life to them, who gave breath of life to your whole creation, who brought the invisible, unseen things out into the light, who made the things that are and the ones that have an appearance from the non-appearing and non-being, who lifted up the Shamayim and founded it on a firmament upon the back of the winds, who founded the Arets upon the waters, who put big stones on the abyss of the water. And the stones will not be submerged, but they are like oak leaves floating on top of the water. And there are living stones, and hear your voice, word, Yahuwah, and keep your commandments which you have commanded to them, and never transgress your ordinances, but you are doing your will to the end. For you, Yahuwah, spoke, and they were brought to life, because your word, Yahuwah, is life for all your creatures. With you I take refuge, Yahuwah, and to you I will shout. Yahuwah, to you I will pour out my supplication. To you I will confess my sins, and to you I will reveal my lawless deeds. Spare me, Yahuwah, because I have sinned much before you. I have committed lawlessness and irreverence, and have said wicked and unspeakable things before you. My mouth is defiled from the sacrifices of the idols, and from the tables of the gods of the Egyptians. I have sinned, YAHUAH, before you. I have sinned much in ignorance, and have worshipped dead and dumb idols. And now I am not worthy to open my mouth to you, YAHUAH. And I, Aseneth, daughter of Penephes, the priest, the virgin and queen, who was once proud and arrogant, and prospering in my riches beyond all people, am now an orphan and desolate, and abandoned by all people. With you I take refuge, YAHUAH, and to you I bring my supplication, and to you I will shout. Rescue me before I am caught by my persecutors. For just as a little child who is afraid flees to his father, and the father, stretching out his hand, snatches him off the ground and puts his arms around him by his breast, and the child clasps his hands around his father's neck and regains his breath after his fear and rest at his father's breast. The father, however, smiles at the confusion of his childish mind. Likewise, you too, YAHUAH, stretch out your hands upon me as a child-loving father, and snatch me off the earth. For behold, the wild old lion persecutes me, because he is the father of the gods of the Egyptians, and his children are the gods of the idol maniacs, and I have come to hate them, because they are the lion's children, and have thrown all of them from me and destroyed them. And the lion, their father, furiously persecutes me, tries to swallow me. But you, YAHUAH, rescue me from his hands, and from his mouth deliver me, lest he carry me off like a lion, and tear me up and throw me into the flame of the fire. And the fire will throw me into the hurricane, and the hurricane will wrap me in darkness and throw me out into the deep of the sea. And the big sea monster who exists since eternity will swallow me, and I will be destroyed forever. Rescue me, YAHUAH, before all this comes upon me. Rescue me, YAHUAH, the desolate and solitary, because my father and mother disowned me, and said, Aseneth is not our daughter, because I have destroyed and ground to pieces their gods, and have come to hate them. And I am now an orphan and desolate, and have no other hope except in you, YAHUAH, and no other refuge except your mercy. YAHUAH, because you are the father of the orphans, and a protector of the persecuted, and a helper of the afflicted, have mercy upon me, YAHUAH, and guard me, a virgin who is abandoned and an orphan, because you, YAHUAH, are a sweet and good and gentle father. What father is as sweet as you, YAHUAH, and who is as quick in mercy as you, YAHUAH, and who is as long-suffering towards our sin as you, YAHUAH? For behold, all the gifts of my father Penephes, which he gave me as an inheritance, are transient and obscure, but the gifts of your inheritance, YAHUAH, are incorruptible and eternal. Chapter 13. Be mindful, YAHUAH, of my humiliation, and have mercy upon me. Look at my orphanage, and have compassion on the afflicted. For behold, I fled from everything, and took refuge in you, YAHUAH, the only friend to men. Behold, I left behind all the good things of the Eretz, and took refuge in you, YAHUAH, in the sackcloth and ashes, naked and an orphan, and left all alone. Behold, I put off my linen royal robe, interwoven with violet and gold, and dressed in a black mourning tunic. Behold, I loosened my golden girdle, and threw it off me, and girded a rope and sackcloth around myself. Behold, my tiara and my diadem I threw off my head, and have sprinkled ashes upon it. Behold, the floor of my chamber, paved with colored and purple stones, which once used to be sprinkled with perfumes and wiped with bright linen cloths, is now sprinkled with my tears and was profaned, having been powdered with ashes. Behold, my Aluah, from my tears and the ashes much mud has been formed in my chamber, as on a broad street. Behold, YAHUAH, my royal dinner, and the cereals I gave to the strange dogs. And behold, 7 days and 7 nights I was fasting and ate no bread and drank no water. And my mouth has become dry as a drum, and my tongue as a horn, and my lips as a potsherd, and my face has fallen, and my eyes are burning in shame from my many tears, and my entire strength has left me. Behold, now all the gods whom I once used to worship in ignorance, I have now recognized that they were dumb and dead idols, and I have caused them to be tramped underfoot by men. And the thieves snatched those that were of silver and gold. And with you I have taken refuge, O YAHUAH, my Aluah. Yet you rescue me from my many deeds of ignorance and pardon me, because I have sinned against you in ignorance, being a virgin, and have fallen in error unwittingly, and spoken blasphemous words against my master Yahusaph, because I did not know, the miserable one that I am, that he is your son. As people told me that Yahusaph is the shepherd's son from the land of Canaan, and I, the miserable one, had come to believe them and fallen into error. And I have despised him and spoken wicked words about him, and did not know that he is your son. For who among men will give birth to such beauty and such great wisdom and virtue and power, as owned by the all-beautiful Yahusaph? YAHUAH, I commit him to you, because I love him beyond my own soul. Preserve him in the wisdom of your grace. And you, YAHUAH, commit me to him, for a maidservant and a slave. And I will make his bed and wash his feet, and wait on him and be a slave for him and serve him forever and ever. Chapter 14. And when Aseneth had ceased making confession to YAHUAH, behold, the booker star rose out of Shalam in the east. And Aseneth saw it and rejoiced and said, So YAHUAH, Aluah, listened to my prayer, because the star rose as a messenger and herald of the light of the great day. And Aseneth kept looking, and behold, close to the booker's star, the Shalam was torn apart, and great and unutterable light appeared. And Aseneth saw it and fell on her face on the ashes, and a man came to her from Shalam and stood by Aseneth's head. And he called her and said, Aseneth, Aseneth. And she said, Who is he that calls me? Because the door of my chamber is closed, and the tower is high. And how then did he come into my chamber? And the man called her a second time and said, Aseneth, Aseneth. And she said, Behold, here I am, master. Who are you? Tell me. And the man said, I am the chief of the house of YAHUAH, and commander of the whole host of the Most High. Rise and stand on your feet, and I will tell you what I have to say. And Aseneth raised her head and saw, and behold, there was a man in every respect similar to Yahusaph, by the robe and the crown and the royal staff, except that his face was a burning torch, and his hands and feet like iron, shining forth from a fire, and sparks shot from his hands and feet. And Aseneth saw it and fell on her face at his feet on the ground. And Aseneth was filled with great fear, and all of her limbs trembled. And the man said to her, Have courage and don't be afraid, but rise and stand on your feet, and I will tell you what I have to say. And Aseneth rose and stood on her feet. And the man said to her, Proceed unhindered into your second chamber. and put off your black tunic of mourning, and the sackcloth put off your waist, and shake off those ashes from your head, and wash your face and your hands with living water, and dress in a new linen robe, as yet untouched and distinguished, and gird your waist with the new twine girdle of your virginity, and come back to me, and I will tell you what I have to say. And Aseneth hurried and went to her second chamber, where the chest containing her linen robe, as yet untouched, were. And she undressed from the black tunic of mourning, and put off the sackcloth from her waist, and dressed in her distinguished and as yet untouched linen robe, and girded herself with the twine girdle of her virginity, one girdle around her waist, and another girdle upon her breast. And she shook off the ashes from her head, and washed her hands and her face with living water. And she took an as yet untouched and distinguished linen veil, and covered her head. Chapter 15. And she went to the man into her first chamber, and stood before him. And the man said to her, Remove the veil from your head. And for what purpose did you do this? For you are a chaste virgin today, and your head is like that of a young man. 1 Corinthians 10:3. And Aseneth removed the veil from her head, and the man said to her, Courage, Aseneth, chaste virgin. Behold, I have heard all the words of your confession and your prayer. Behold, I have also seen the humiliation and the affliction of the 7 days of your want of food. Behold, from your tears and these ashes, plenty of mud has formed before your face. Courage, Aseneth, chaste virgin. For behold, your name was written in the book of the living in Shalam, in the beginning of the book, as the very first of all. Your name is written by my finger, and it will not be erased forever. Behold, from today you will be renewed and formed anew, and made alive again, and you will eat Baruch bread of life, and drink a Baruch cup of immortality, and anoint yourself with Baruch ointment of incorruptibility. Courage, Aseneth, chaste virgin. Behold, I have given you today to Yahusaph for a bride, and he himself will be your bridegroom forever and ever. And your name shall no longer be called Aseneth, but your name shall be City of Refuge, because in you many nations will take refuge, with Yahuwah Aluah, the Most High. And under your wings many people trusting in Yahuwah Aluah will be sheltered. And behind your walls will be guarded those who attach themselves to the Most High Aluah in the name of repentance. For repentance is in the Shamaim, an exceedingly beautiful and good daughter of the Most High. And she herself entreats the Most High Yahuwah for you at all times, and for all who repent in the name of the Most High Aluah, because he is the Father of repentance. And she herself is guardian of all virgins, and loves you very much, and is beseeching the Most High for you at all times, and for all who repent, she has prepared a place of rest in the Shamaim. And she will renew all who repent, and wait on them herself forever and ever. And repentance is exceedingly beautiful, a virgin pure and laughing always. And she is gentle and meek, and therefore the Most High Father loves her. And all the Malachim stand in awe of her. And I, too, love her exceedingly, because she is also my sister. And because she loves you virgins, I love you too. And behold, I am going away to Yahusaph, and will tell him about you everything I have to say. And Yahusaph will come to you today, and see you, and rejoice over you, and love you, and he will be your bridegroom, and you will be a bride for him forever and ever. And now listen to me, Aseneth, chaste virgin, and dress in your wedding robe, the ancient and fine robe which is laid up in your chamber since eternity, and put around you all your wedding ornaments, and adorn yourself as a good bride, and go meet Yahusaph. For behold, he himself is coming to you today, and he will see you and rejoice." And when the man had finished speaking these words, Aseneth rejoiced exceedingly with great joy about all these words, and fell down at his feet, and prostrated herself face down to the ground before him, and said to him, "Baruch be YAHUAH your Aluah, the Most High, who sent you out to rescue me from the darkness, and to bring me up from the foundations of the abyss. And Baruch be your name forever." "What is your name, Master? Tell me, in order that I may praise and glorify you forever and ever." And the man said to her, "Why do you seek this, my name, Aseneth? My name is in the Shamaim, in the book of the Most High, written by the finger of YAHUAH, in the beginning of the book before all others, because I am the chief of the house of the Most High. And all names written in the book of the Most High are unspeakable, and man is not allowed to pronounce nor hear them in this world, because those names are exceedingly great and wonderful and laudable." And Aseneth said, "If I have found favor in your sight, Master, and will know that you will do all your words, and that you have spoken to me, let your maidservant speak before you." And the man said to her, "Speak up." And Aseneth stretched out her right hand, and put it on his knees, and said to him, "I beg you, Master, sit down a little on this bed, because this bed is pure and undefiled, and a man or a woman never sat on it. And I will set a table before you, and bring you bread, and you will eat, and bring you from my storeroom old and good wine, the exhalation of which will go up till heaven. And you will drink from it, and after this you will go out on your way." And this man said to her, "Hurry, and bring it quickly." Chapter 16. And Aseneth hurried and set a new table before him, and went to provide bread for him. And the man said to her, "Bring me also a honeycomb." And Aseneth stood still, and was distressed, because she didn't have a honeycomb in her storeroom. And the man said to her, "Why do you stand still?" And Aseneth said, "I will send a boy to the suburb, because the field which is our inheritance is closed, and he will quickly bring you a honeycomb from there, and I will set it before you, Master." And the man said to her, "Proceed and enter your storeroom, and you will find a honeycomb lying upon the table. Pick it up and bring it here." And Aseneth said, "Master, a honeycomb is not in my storeroom." And the man said, "Proceed, and you will find one." And Aseneth entered her storeroom, and found a honeycomb lying on the table. And the comb was big, and white as snow, and full of honey. And that honey was like dew from heaven, and its exhalation like breath of life. And Aseneth wondered, and said in herself, "Did then this comb come out of the man's mouth? Because its exhalation is like the breath of this man's mouth." And Aseneth took the comb, and brought it to the man, and put it on the table which she had prepared before him. And the man said to her, "How is it that you said that a honeycomb is not in my storeroom? And behold, you have brought a wonderful honeycomb." And Aseneth was afraid, and said, "Master, I did not have a honeycomb in my storeroom at any time, but you spoke, and it came into being. Surely this came out of your mouth, because its exhalation is like the breath of your mouth." And the man smiled at Aseneth's understanding, and called her to himself, and stretched out his right hand, and grasped her head, and shook her head with his right hand. And Aseneth was afraid of the man's hand, because sparks shot forth from his hand, as from bubbling red hot iron. And Aseneth looked, gazing with her eyes at the man's hand. And the man saw and smiled, and said, "Happy are you, Aseneth, because the ineffable mysteries of the Most High have been revealed to you. And happy are all who attach themselves to YAHUAH Aluah in repentance, because they will eat from this comb. For this comb is full of the spirit of life, and the bees of the paradise of delight have made this from the dew of the roses of life that are in the paradise of YAHUAH. And all the Malakim of YAHUAH eat of it, and all the chosen of YAHUAH, and all the children of the Most High. because this is a comb of life, and everyone who eats of it will not die forever and ever." And the man stretched out his right hand and broke a small portion off the comb, and he himself ate. And what was left he put with his hand into Aseneth's mouth, and said to her, "Eat." And she ate. And the man said to Aseneth, "Behold, you have eaten bread of life, and drunk a cup of immortality, and been anointed with ointment of incorruptibility. Behold, from today your flesh will flourish like flowers of life from the ground of the Most High, and your bones will grow strong like the cedars of the paradise of the light of YAHUAH. And untiring powers will embrace you, and your youth will not see old age, and your beauty will not fail forever. And you shall be like a walled mother city of all who take refuge with the name of YAHUAH Aluah, the King of the ages." And the man stretched out his right hand and touched the comb where he had broken off a portion, and it was restored and filled up, and at once it became whole as it was in the beginning. And again the man stretched out his right hand and put his forefinger on the edge of the comb, looking east, and drew it over the edge looking west, and the way of his finger became like blood. And he stretched out his hand a second time, and put his finger on the edge of the comb, looking north, and drew it over the edge, looking south. And the way of his finger became like blood. And Aseneth stood at his left and watched everything that the men were doing. And the man said to the comb, "Come." And the bees rose from the cells of that comb, and the cells were innumerable, 10,000 times 10,000s, and thousands upon thousands. And the bees were white as snow, and their wings like purple, and like violet, and like scarlet, and like gold woven linen cloaks. And golden diamonds were on their heads, and they had sharp stings, and they would not injure anyone. And all those bees encircled Aseneth from feet to head. And other bees were great and chosen like their queens. And they rose from the damaged part of the comb, and encircled Aseneth's mouth, and made upon her mouth and her lips a comb similar to the comb which was lying before the man. And all these bees ate of the comb which was on Aseneth's mouth. And the man said to the bees, "Go off to your place." And all the bees rose and flew and went away into Shalam. And those who wanted to injure Aseneth fell to the ground and died. And the man stretched out his staff over the dead bees, and said to them, "Rise you too, and go away to your place." And the bees who had died rose and went into the court adjoining Aseneth's house, and sought shelter on the fruit-bearing trees. Chapter 17. And the man said to Aseneth, "Have you seen this thing?" And she said, "Yes, master, I have seen all these things." And the man said to her, "So will be all my words which I have spoken to you today." And the man for the third time stretched out his right hand and touched the damaged part of the comb, and at once fire went up from the table and consumed the comb, but the table it did not injure. And much fragrance came forth from the burning of the comb, and filled the chamber. And Aseneth said to the man, "Master, with me are 7 virgins ministering to me, fostered with me from my childhood, born with me in one night, and I love them as my sisters. I will call them, and you will baruch them, as you have baruched me too." And the man said, "Call them." And Aseneth called them, the 7 virgins, and stood them before the man. And the man baruched them and said, "May YAHUAH Aluah, the Most High, baruch you, and you shall be 7 pillars of the city of refuge, and all the fellow inhabitants of the chosen of that city will rest upon you forever and ever." And the man said to Aseneth, "Put this table away." And Aseneth turned to put the table away, and at once the man went away out of her sight. And Aseneth saw something like a chariot of 4 horses, traveling into Shalam toward the east. and the chariot was like a flame of fire, and the horses like lightning, and the man was standing on the chariot. And Aseneth said, "What a foolish and bold woman I am, because I have spoken with frankness, and said that a man came into my chamber from Shamayim, and did not know that YAHUAH came to me. And behold, now he is traveling back into Shamayim to his place." And she said in herself, "Be gracious, YAHUAH, to your servant, and spare your maidservant, because I have spoken boldly before you all my words in ignorance." Chapter 18. And Aseneth was still saying these things to herself. Behold, a young man from Pinefrah's servant staff rushed in and said, "Behold, Yahusaph, the powerful one of YAHUAH, is coming to us today. For a forerunner of his is standing at the gate of our court." And Aseneth hurried and called her foster father, the steward of her house, and said to him, "Hurry and make the house ready, and prepare a good dinner, because Yahusaph, the powerful one of YAHUAH, is coming to us today." And her foster father saw her, and behold, her face had fallen from the affliction and the weeping, and the fasting of the 7 days. And he was distressed and wept, and he took her right hand and kissed it, and said, "What have you, my child? Because your face has fallen so much." And Aseneth said to him, "My head is stricken with heavy pain, and the sleep kept away from my eyes, and therefore my face has fallen." And her foster father went away and prepared the house and the dinner. And Aseneth remembered the man from Shamayim and his commandment. And she hurried and entered her second chamber, where the chest containing her ornaments were, and opened her big coffer, and brought out her first robe, the one of wedding, the lightning in appearance, and dressed in it. And she girded a golden and royal girdle around herself, which was made of precious stones. And she put golden bracelets on her fingers, and on her feet golden buskins, and precious ornaments. And she put around her neck, in which innumerable costly and precious stones were fastened. And a golden crown she put on her head, and on that crown, in front of her brow, was a big sapphire stone. And around the big stone were 6 costly stones, and with a veil she covered her head like a bride. And she took a scepter in her hand. And Aseneth remembered the words of her foster father, because he had said to her, "Your face has fallen." And she sighed and was much distressed, and said, "Woe is me, the humble, because my face has fallen. Yahusaph will see me and despise me." And she said to her foster sister, "Bring me pure water from the spring, and I will wash my face." And she brought her pure water from the spring, and poured it into a basin. And Aseneth leaned over to wash her face, and saw her face in the water, and it was like the sun, and her eyes were like a rising Booker's star, and her cheeks like fields of the Most High, and on her cheeks there was red color, like a son of Adam's blood, and her lips were like a rose of life coming out of its foliage, and her teeth like fighting men lined up for a fight. And the hair of her head was like a vine in the paradise of YAHUAH, prospering in its fruits, and her neck like an all variegated cypress, and her breasts were like the mountains of the Most High YAHUAH. And when Aseneth saw herself in the water, she was amazed at the sight and rejoiced with great joy, and did not wash her face, for she said, "Perhaps I will wash off this great beauty." And her foster father came to say to her, "Everything is prepared as you have commanded." And when he saw her, he was alarmed, and stood speechless for a long time, and was filled with great fear, and fell at her feet, and said, "What is this, my mistress? And what is this great and wonderful beauty? At last YAHUAH Aluah of Shamayim has chosen you as a bride for his firstborn son, Yahusaph." Chapter 19. And while they were still speaking, This way a boy came and said to Aseneth, "Behold, Yahusaph is standing at the doors of our court." And Aseneth hurried and went down the stairs from the upper floor with the 7 virgins to meet Yahusaph, and stood in the entrance of the house. And Yahusaph entered the court, and the gates were closed, and all strangers remained outside. And Aseneth went out of the entrance to meet Yahusaph. And Yahusaph saw her and was amazed at her beauty, and said to her, "Who are you? Quickly tell me." And she said to him, "I am your maidservant, Aseneth, and all the idols I have thrown away from me, and they were destroyed. And a man came to me from Shalam today, and gave me bread of life, and I ate, and a cup of barakah, and I drank. And he said to me, I have given you for a bride to Yahusaph today, and he himself will be your bridegroom forever and ever. And he said to me, your name will no longer be called Aseneth, but your name will be called City of Refuge. And Aluah will reign as king over many nations forever, because in you many nations will take refuge, with Aluah the Most High." And the man said to me, "I will also go to Yahusaph, and speak into his ears concerning you, and what I have to say. And now you know, my master, whether that man has come to you and spoken to you concerning me." And Yahusaph said to Aseneth, "Baruch are you by the Most High Aluah, and Baruch is your name forever. Baruch, Aluah, founded your walls in the highest, and your walls are adamantine walls of life, because the children of the living Aluah will dwell in your city of refuge. And Aluah will reign as king over them forever and ever. For this man came to me today and spoke to me words such as these concerning you. And now come to me, chase version, and why do you stand far away from me?" And Yahusaph stretched out his hands and called Aseneth by a wink of his eyes. And Aseneth also stretched out her hands and ran up to Yahusaph and fell on his breast. And Yahusaph put his arms around her, and Aseneth put hers around Yahusaph, and they kissed each other for a long time, and both came to life in their ruach. And Yahusaph kissed Aseneth, and gave her ruach of life. And he kissed her the second time, and gave her ruach of wisdom. And he kissed her the third time, and gave her ruach of truth. Chapter 20. And they embraced each other for a long time, and interlocked their hands like bonds. And Aseneth said to Yahusaph, "Come, my master, and enter our house, because I have prepared our house and made a great dinner." And she grasped his right hand and led him into her house and seated him. And Pinefas, her father's throne, and she brought water to wash his feet. And Yahusaph said, "Let one of the virgins come and wash my feet." And Aseneth said to him, "No, my master, because you are my master from now on, and I am your maidservant. And why do you say that another virgin is to wash your feet? For your feet are my feet, and your hands are my hands, and your soul my soul, and your feet another woman will never wash." And she urged him and washed his feet. And Yahusaph looked at her hands, and they were like hands of life, and her fingers fine like the fingers of a fast-writing scribe. And after this Yahusaph grasped her right hand and kissed it, and Aseneth kissed his head and sat at his right hand. And her father and mother and his whole family came from the field, which was their inheritance. And they saw Aseneth like the appearance of light, and her beauty was like heavenly beauty. And they saw her sitting with Yahusaph, and dressed in a wedding garment, and they were amazed at her beauty, and rejoiced and gave glory to Aluah, who gives life to the dead. And after this they ate and drank and celebrated. And Pinefres said to Yahusaph, Tomorrow I will call all the noblemen and the satraps of the whole land of Mitzrayim, and give a marriage feast for you. And you will take my daughter Aseneth for your wife. And Yahusaph said, I will go tomorrow to Pharaoh the king, because he is like a father to me, and appointed me chief of the whole land of Mitzrayim. And I will speak about Aseneth into his ears, and he himself will give her to me for my wife. And Pinefres said to him, Go in Shalom. And Yahusaph stayed with Pinefres that day, and he did not sleep with Aseneth, because Yahusaph said, It does not benefit a man who worships Aluah to sleep with his wife before the wedding. And Yahusaph rose at daybreak and went away to Pharaoh and said to him, Give me Aseneth, daughter of Pinefres, priest of Heliopolis, for my wife. And Pharaoh rejoiced with great joy and said to Yahusaph, Behold, isn't this the one betrothed to you since eternity? And she shall be your wife from now on, forever and ever. And Pharaoh sent and called Pinefres, and he came and brought Aseneth, and stood her before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh saw her, and was amazed at her beauty, and said, May YAHUAH, the Aluah of Yahusaph, baruch you, child, and let this beauty of yours remain forever and ever, because justly YAHUAH, the Aluah of Yahusaph, has chosen you as a bride for Yahusaph, because he is the firstborn son of YAHUAH. And you shall be called a daughter of the Most High, and a bride of Yahusaph from now on and forever. And Pharaoh took Yahusaph and Aseneth, and put golden crowns on their heads, which had been in his house from the beginning and of old. And Pharaoh set Aseneth at Yahusaph's right side, and put his hands on their heads, and his right hand was on Aseneth's head. And Pharaoh said, May YAHUAH Aluah the Most High baruch you, and multiply you, and magnify you, and glorify you forever. And Pharaoh turned them around toward each other, face to face, and brought them mouth to mouth, and joined them by their lips, and they kissed each other. And after this Pharaoh gave a marriage feast, and a great dinner, and a big banquet for 7 days. And he called together all the chiefs of the land of Mitzrayim, and all the kings of the nations, and proclaimed to the whole land of Mitzrayim, saying, Every man who does any work during the 7 days of Yahusaph's and Aseneth's wedding shall surely die. And it happened after this, Yahusaph went into Aseneth, and Aseneth conceived from Yahusaph, and gave birth to Manasseh and Ephraim, and his brother, in Yahusaph's house. And Yahusaph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for YAHUAH said, He has made me forget all my toil, and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for YAHUAH has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Bereshith 45, 1-2, chapter 21. And then Aseneth began to confess to YAHUAH Aluah, and gave thanks, praying for all the good things of which she was deemed worthy by YAHUAH. I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned before you, I have sinned much. Aseneth, daughter of Pinefres, priest of Heliopolis, who is an overseer of everything, I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned before you, I have sinned much. I was prospering in my father's house, and was a boastful and arrogant virgin. I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned before you, I have sinned much, and have worshipped strange gods who were without number, and eaten bread from their sacrifices. I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned before you, I have sinned much. Bread of strangulation I have eaten, and a cup of insidiousness have I drunk from the table of death. I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned before you, I have sinned much. And I did not know YAHUAH, the Aluah of Shamayim, and I did not trust in the Most High, YAHUAH of life. I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned. Before you I have sinned much. For I trusted in the riches of my glory and in my beauty, and I was boastful and arrogant. I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned. Before you I have sinned much, and I despised every man on earth, and there was no one who achieved anything before me. I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned. Before you I have sinned much, and I had come to hate all who asked my hand in marriage, and despise them and scorn them. I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned. Before you I have sinned much. And I spoke bold words in vanity and said, there is no prince on earth who may loosen the girdle of my virginity. I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned. Before you I have sinned much, but will be the bride of the great king's firstborn son. I have sinned, YAHUAH, I have sinned. Before you I have sinned much. Until Yahusaph, the powerful one of YAHUAH, came, he pulled me down from my dominating position and made me humble after my arrogance. And by his beauty he caught me. And by his wisdom he grasped me like a fish on a hook. And by his ruach, as by a bait of life, he ensnared me. And by his power he confirmed me, and brought me to the Aluah of the ages, and to the chief of the house of the Most High, and gave me to eat bread of life, and to drink a cup of wisdom, and I became his bride forever and ever. Chapter 22. And it happened after this, the 7 years of plenty passed, and the 7 years of famine began to come. And Jacob heard about Yahusaph his son, and Yashar'Al went to Mitzrayim with his whole family in the 2nd year of the famine, in the 2nd month, on the 21st of the month, and dwelt in the land of Goshen. And Aseneth said to Yahusaph, I will go and see your father, because your father Yashar'Al is like a father to me, and a Aluah. And Yahusaph said to her, you shall go with me and see my father. And Yahusaph and Aseneth went to the land of Goshen to Jacob. And Yahusaph's brothers met them and prostrated themselves face down to the ground before them. And they went in to Jacob. And Yashar'Al was sitting on his bed, and he was an old man in comfortable old age. And Aseneth saw him and was amazed at his beauty, because Jacob was exceedingly beautiful to look at, and his old age was like the youth of a handsome young man. And his head was all white as snow, and the hairs of his head were all exceedingly close and thick like those of an Ethiopian. And his beard was white, reaching down to his breast, and his eyes were flashing and darting flashes of lightning. And his sinews and his shoulders and his arms were like those of a malach, and his thighs and his calves and his feet like those of a giant. And Jacob was like a man who had wrestled with YAHUAH. And Aseneth saw him and was amazed, and prostrated herself before him, face down to the ground. And Jacob said to Yahusaph, is this my daughter-in-law, your wife? Baruch she will be by the Most High, Aluah. And Jacob called her to himself and baruched her and kissed her. And Aseneth stretched out her hands and grasped Jacob's neck, and hung herself on her father's neck, just like someone hangs onto his father's neck when he returns from fighting into his house. And she kissed him. And after this they ate and drank. And Yahusaph and Aseneth went back to their house. And Simeon and Lewi, Yahusaph's brethren, the sons of Leah, alone escorted them. But the sons of Zilpah and Bilhah, Leah's and Rachel's maidservants, did not escort them, because they envied them and were hostile against them. And Lewi was on Aseneth's right side, and Yahusaph on her left. And Aseneth grasped Lewi's hand, and Aseneth loved Lewi exceedingly beyond all of Yahusaph's brethren, because he was one who attached himself to YAHUAH. And he was a prudent man and a prophet of the Most High, and sharp-sighted with his eyes. And he used to see letters written in Shamayim by the finger of YAHUAH, and he knew the unspeakable mysteries of the Most High, YAHUAH, and revealed them to Aseneth in secret, because he himself, Louis, would love Aseneth very much, and see her place of rest in the highest, and her walls like an adamant, eternal walls, and her foundations found upon the rock of the seventh heaven. Chapter 23. And it happened while Yahusaph and Aseneth were passing by, Pharaoh's firstborn son saw them from the wall, and he saw Aseneth and was cut to the heart. And for some time he was heavily indignant and felt sick because of her beauty. And he said, "Thus it shall not be." And Pharaoh's son sent messengers and called to him Simeon and Louis. And the men came to him and stood before him. And Pharaoh's firstborn son said to them, "I know today that you are powerful men beyond all men on the earth. And by these right hands of yours the city of the Shechemites has been overthrown. And by these two swords of yours 30,000 fighting men were cut down. And behold, today I will take you as companions for myself, and give you plenty of gold and silver, and servants and maids and houses, and big estates as an inheritance. Only do this thing and show mercy on me, for I have been insulted very much by your brother Yahusaph, for he himself took Aseneth, my envisaged wife, who was betrothed to me from the beginning. And now come assist me, and we will make war on Yahusaph, your brother, and I will kill him with my sword, and have Aseneth for my wife. And you will be to me brothers and faithful friends. However, do this thing. But if you are too cowardly to do this thing, and despise my purpose, behold, my sword is prepared against you." And while he was saying this, he exposed his sword and showed it to them. But when the men, Simeon and Louis, heard these words, they were exceedingly cut to the heart, because Pharaoh's son had spoken to them in a tyrannical fashion. And Simeon was a daring and bold man, and he intended to lay his hands on the handle of his sword and draw it from its sheath and strike Pharaoh's son, because he had spoken defiant things to them. And Louis saw the intention of his heart, because Louis was a prophet, and he was sharp-sighted with both his mind and his eyes, and he used to read what is written in the heart of men. And Louis trod with his foot on Simeon's right foot and pressed it, and thus signaled him to cease from his wrath. And Louis said to Simeon quietly, "Why are you furious with anger with this man? And we are men who worship YAHUAH, and it does not befit us to repay evil for evil." And Louis said to Pharaoh's son with frankness, his face cheerful, and there was not the least bit of anger in him, but in meekness of heart he said to him, "Why does our master speak words such as these? And we are men who worship YAHUAH, and our father is a friend of the Most High, Aluah, and Yahusaph, our brother, is like the firstborn son of YAHUAH. And how could we do this wicked thing, and sin before our Aluah, and before our father Yashar'Al, and before our brother Yahusaph? And now listen to my words. It does not befit a man who worships YAHUAH to injure anyone in any way. And if anyone wants to injure a man who worships YAHUAH, the first mentioned man who worships YAHUAH does not succor him, the injurer, because a sword is not in his hands. And you at least guard against speaking any longer about our brother Yahusaph words such as these. But if you insist on this wicked purpose of yours, behold, our swords are drawn in our right hands before you." And Simeon and Louis drew their swords from their sheaths and said, "Behold, have you seen these swords? With these two swords, Aluah punished the insult of the Shechemites, by which they insulted the sons of Yashar'Al, because of our sister Dinah, whom Shechem the son of Hamor had defiled. And the son of Pharaoh saw their swords drawn, and was exceedingly afraid, and trembled over his whole body, because their swords were flashing forth like a flame of fire. And the eyes of Pharaoh's son darkened, and he fell on his face on the ground beneath their feet. And Louis stretched out his right hand and grasped him and said to him, "Rise and don't be afraid. Only guard against speaking any longer a wicked word about our brother Yahusaph." And Simeon and Louis went away from the presence of Pharaoh's son. Chapter 24. And the son of Pharaoh was full of fear and distress, because he was afraid of Yahusaph's brothers, Simeon and Louis. And he was still weighed down by Asenath's beauty, and distressed with great overwhelming distress. And his servants said to him, "Behold, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, Leah's and Rachel's maidservants, Jacob's wives, are hostile to Yahusaph and Asenath, and envy them, and these will be in your power according to your will." And Pharaoh's son sent messengers and called them to himself, and they came to him at the first hour of the night and stood before him. And Pharaoh's son said to them, "I have a word to say to you, because you are powerful men." And Dan and Gad, the elder brothers, said to him, "Let our master say to his servant what he wants to say, and your servants will listen, and we will do according to your will." And Pharaoh's son rejoiced exceedingly with great joy, and said to his servants, "Withdraw from me a little, because I have a confidential word to say to these men." And they all withdrew. And Pharaoh's son lied to them and said, "Behold, Barakah and death are set before your face. Take now rather the Barakah and not the death, because you are powerful men and will not die like women, but be brave and avenge yourself on your enemies. For I heard Yahusaph your brother saying to Pharaoh my father concerning you, children of my father's maidservant are Dan and Gad and Naphtali and Asher, and they are not my brothers. And I will wait for my father's death, and them will I blot them out from the earth, and all their offspring, lest they share the inheritance with us, because they are children of maidservants. And these men have sold me to the Ishmaelites, and I will repay them according to the whole insult of theirs which they committed against me wickedly. Only let my father die first." And Pharaoh my father commended him and said to him, "Well, you have spoken, child. Then take from me men who are powerful in fighting, and go out to meet them in accordance with what they did to you, and I will be a helper to you." And when the men heard these words of Pharaoh's son, they were exceedingly troubled and distressed, and said to Pharaoh's son, "We beg you, master, help us." And Pharaoh's son said to them, "I will be a helper to you if you hear my words." And the men said, "Behold, we are your servants before you. Give us orders, and we will do according to your will." And Pharaoh's son said to them, "I will kill my father Pharaoh this night, because Pharaoh my father is like a father to Yahusaph, and said to him that he would help him against you, and you kill Yahusaph. And I will take Asenath for a wife for myself, and you will be brothers to me and fellow heirs of all my things. However, do this thing." And Dan and Gad said to him, "We are your servants today, and will do everything which you have ordered us. And we have heard Yahusaph saying to Asenath today, 'Go tomorrow to the field which is our inheritance, because it is the hour of the vintage.' And he gave an escort to be with her, 600 men powerful in fighting, and 50 forerunners. And now listen to us, and we will speak to our master." And they spoke to him all their secret words, and said, "Give us men for war." And Pharaoh's son gave to the 4 brothers 500 men each, and them he appointed their chiefs and commanders. And Dan and Gad said to him, "We are your servants today, and will do everything that you have ordered us. We will go by night and set up an ambush in the wadi and hide in the thicket of the reeds. And you take with you 50 bowmen on horses and go far ahead of us. And Asenath will come. Asenath will flee ahead with her carriage and fall into your hands, and you will do to her as your soul desires. And after that we will kill Yahusaph, as he is distressed over Asenath, and his children we will kill before his eyes." And Pharaoh's son rejoiced when he heard these words, and he sent them out, and 2,000 fighting men with them. And they came to the wadi, and hid in the thicket of the reeds, and they split into 4 detachments, And they were sitting across the wadi, on the forward section as it were, on this side of the road, and the other 500 men each. Likewise, on this side of the wadi, the rest were waiting, and they too were sitting on the thicket of the reeds, on this side of the road, and the other 500 men each. And between them the road was wide and spacious. Chapter 25. And Pharaoh's son rose in the night and went to the chamber of his father in order to kill his father with the sword. And his father's guard prevented him from going in to his father and said to him, "What are your orders, master?" And Pharaoh's son said to them, "I want to see my father because I'm going out to harvest the vintage of my new planted vineyard." And the guard said to him, "Your father suffers from a headache and lay awake all night, and now he is resting a little. He said to us, 'Let no one come close to me, not even my firstborn son.'" And when he heard this, Pharaoh's son went away hurriedly and took with him 50 mounted bowmen and went away at their head, just as Dan and Gad had spoken to him. And the younger brothers, Naphtali and Asher, spoke to their older brothers, Dan and Gad, saying, "Why do you once again act wickedly against our father Yashar'Al and against our brother Yahusaph? And him YAHUAH is guarding like an apple of the eye. Behold, have you not sold him once? And now he is king of the whole land of Natsarym and savior and grain giver? And now again, if you should attempt to act wickedly against him, he will cry to the Most High, and he will send fire from Shamayim, and it will consume you. And the Malachim of YAHUAH will fight for him against you." And their older brothers, Dan and Gad, were angry at them and said, "But shall we die like women? That would be absurd." And they went out to meet Yahusaph in Aseneth. Chapter 26. And Aseneth rose at daybreak and said to Yahusaph, "I will go, just like you have said, to the field which is our inheritance, and my soul is anxious because you are parting from me." And Yahusaph said to her, "Have courage and don't be afraid, but go because YAHUAH is with you, and he himself will guard you like an apple of the eye from every wicked deed. For I too will go to my grain giving and will give bread to all men, and the whole land will surely not perish from the face of YAHUAH." And Aseneth went away on her way, and Yahusaph went away to his grain giving. And Aseneth and the 600 men with her came to the place of the wadi. And suddenly those who lay in ambush rushed out of their ambushes and joined battle with Aseneth's men, and cut them down with the edge of the sword. And they killed all her forerunners, but Aseneth fled ahead with her carriage. And Louis the son of Leah perceived all these things in his ruach as a prophet, and he declared the danger in which Aseneth was to his brothers. The sons of Leah, and each of them took his sword and put it on his thigh, and they took their shields and put them on their arms, and they took their spears in their right hands, and pursued after Aseneth in rapid course. And Aseneth was fleeing ahead, and behold, Pharaoh's son and 50 horsemen with him met her. And Aseneth saw him, and was afraid, and troubled very much, and her whole body trembled, and she called on the name of YAHUAH, her Aluah. Chapter 27. And Benjamin sat at Aseneth's left hand in her carriage. And Benjamin was a boy of 18 years, big and strong and powerful. And there was unspeakable beauty on him, and strength like that of a lion cub. And he reverenced YAHUAH exceedingly. And Benjamin leaped down from the carriage, and took a round stone from the wadi, and filled his hand, and hurled the stone at Pharaoh's son, and struck his left temple, and wounded him with a heavy wound. And Pharaoh's son fell down from his horse on the ground, being half dead. And Benjamin leaped and went up upon the rock, and said to Aseneth's charioteer, "Give me stones from the wadi." And he gave him 50 stones. And Benjamin hurled the 50 stones, and killed the 50 men who were with the son of Pharaoh. And all the stones penetrated their temples. And the sons of Leah, Reuben, Simon, Louis, and Yehudah, Issachar, and Zebulun, pursued after the men who had been lying in ambush for Aseneth, and fell upon them unawares, and cut them all down, the 6 men killed 2,000. And their brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, fled from their presence and said, "We have been destroyed by our brothers, and Pharaoh's son has died by the hand of Benjamin the boy, and all who were with him have been destroyed by the one hand of the boy Benjamin. And now come, let us kill Aseneth and Benjamin, and flee into the thicket of the reeds." And they came toward Aseneth, holding their swords drawn, full of blood. And Aseneth saw them, and was exceedingly afraid, and said, "YAHUAH my Aluah, who made me alive again, and rescued me from the idols and the corruption of death, who said to me, 'Your soul will live forever,' rescue me from the hands of these wicked men." And YAHUAH Aluah heard Aseneth's voice, and at once their swords fell from their hands on the ground, and were reduced to ashes. Chapter 28. And the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah saw the great thing, and were exceedingly afraid, and said, "YAHUAH fights against us for Aseneth." And they fell on their face to the ground, and prostrated themselves before Aseneth, and said, "Have mercy on us, your slaves, because you are our mistress and queen, and we have wickedly committed evil against you, and against our brother Yahusaph. And YAHUAH repaid us according to our works. And now we, your slaves, beg you, have mercy on us, and rescue us from the hands of our brothers, because they arrived as avengers of the insult done to you. And their swords are against us, and we know that our brothers are men who worship YAHUAH, and do not repay anyone evil for evil. Anyway, be gracious to your slaves, mistress, before them." And Aseneth said to them, "Courage, and do not be afraid of your brothers, because they are men who worship YAHUAH, and reverence YAHUAH, and respect every man. But go into this thicket of reeds until I appease them concerning you, and make their anger cease, because you acted in great boldness against them. Courage now, and do not be afraid. Besides, YAHUAH will judge between me and you." And Dan and Gad and their brothers fled into the thicket of reeds, and behold, the sons of Leah came running like 3-year-old stags against them. And Aseneth descended from the carriage that gave her shelter, and gave them her right hand with tears. And they, falling down, prostrated themselves on the ground before her, and wept in a loud voice. And they were seeking their brothers, the sons of their father's maidservants, in order to do away with them. And Aseneth said to them, "I beg you, spare your brothers, and do not do them evil for evil, because YAHUAH protected me against them, and shattered their swords, and they melted on the ground like wax, from the presence of fire. And this is enough for them, that YAHUAH fights against them for us. And you spare them, because they are your brothers, and your father Yashar'Al's blood." And Simeon said to her, "Why does our mistress speak good on behalf of her enemies? No, but let us cut them down with our swords, because they were first to plan evil against us, and against our father Yashar'Al, and against our brother Yahusaph. This already twice, and against you, our mistress and queen, today." And Aseneth stretched out her right hand, and touched Simeon's beard, and kissed him, and said, "By no means, brother, will you do evil for evil to your brother. To YAHUAH you will give the right to punish the insult done by them, for they are your brothers and your father, Yashar'Al's line, and they fled far from your presence. Anyway, grant them pardon." And Louis went up to her and kissed her right hand, and perceived that she wanted to save the men from their brother's anger, so that they would not kill them. And they were nearby in the thickets of the reeds. And Louis their brother perceived it, and did not declare it to his brothers, for he was afraid that in their anger they might cut them down. Chapter 29. And Pharaoh's son rose from the ground, and sat up, and spat blood from his mouth, because the blood from his temple ran down over his mouth. And Benjamin ran up to him, and took his sword, and drew it from its sheath, because Benjamin did not have a sword on his thigh, and set about to strike the breast of Pharaoh's son. And Louis ran up to him, and grasped his hand, and said, "By no means, brother, will you do this deed, because we are men who worship YAHUAH, and it does not benefit a man who worships YAHUAH to repay evil for evil, nor to trample under a fallen man, nor to oppress his enemy till death. And now put your sword back in its place, and come help me, and we will heal him of his wound. And if he lives, he will be our friend after this, and his father Pharaoh will be like our father." And Louis raised Pharaoh's son from the ground, and washed the blood off his face, and tied a bandage to his wound, and put him upon his horse, and conducted him to his father Pharaoh, and described to him all these things. And Pharaoh rose from his throne, and prostrated himself before Louis on the ground, and baruched him. And on the third day Pharaoh's son died from the wound of the stone of Benjamin the boy. And Pharaoh mourned exceedingly for the firstborn son. And from the morning he fell ill. And Pharaoh died at 109 years, and left his diadem to Yahusaph. And Yahusaph reigned as king in Mitzrayim for 48 years. And after this he gave the diadem to Pharaoh's younger offspring, who was at the breast when Pharaoh died. And Yahusaph was like a father to Pharaoh's younger son in the land of Mitzrayim all the days of his life. From the book of YAHUSHA, chapter 1. Yet the number of the children of Yashar'Al shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said to them, You are not my people, there it shall be said to them, You are the children of the living Aluah. Then shall the children of YAHUDAH and the children of Yashar'Al be gathered together, and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Yashar'Al. Selah.